Several minutes of commercial-free football starts now.
Here are the Purple Mortgage Guys.
Welcome to another episode of Purple Mortgage Guys. We've got Tanner, Goose, and myself, Brent. We do home loans during the day. We love talking Vikings football at night and on the weekends, and started the show. So if you guys have not yet subscribed, go ahead and hit us up. We'd love to have you. Throw some comments as you're listening. We'll address them on the next show. Guys, one of my favorite days of the year, schedule release. We've already known the teams they were going to play. Now we know the order they're going to play them, what time of year, if they're going to be in cold weather, all that fun stuff. So guys, Goose, I'll start with you. First thoughts on the schedule for 2023.
I have not looked at it start to finish. I wanted to have a little bit of like a raw reaction when we recorded tonight, but
okay.
I did see that the second game against the Packers is at home. So I'm hoping that means we will have less of a chance to watch the Vikings on ice skates at the end of the season.
That was probably one of the more brutal moments of the season, along with that debacle that we had against Dallas, Tanner, that you remember pretty well, or maybe don't remember real well. What are your thoughts overall?
I think it looks pretty tough. I know a lot of fans. It seems like every year when the schedule comes out, that's usually when people are the most optimistic because everybody thinks that their schedule looks pretty favorable. But the one thing that we do have going for us is we don't really have any cold weather games, I don't think, based off the looks of things. The one cold weather game that we could potentially have is against Cincinnati in December. That's to be determined yet, I think, when that's going to be played. But other than that, it's nice not having to worry about, going to Green Bay or Chicago super late in the season.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's pull it up here. I'm curious what you guys are. We got some preseason games. We don't even have to talk about those, but we got games 2 and 3 at home against the Titans and Cardinals. But we, like you said, we open up against Tampa, Philadelphia on that Monday night. Did we play them week 2 last year as well on Monday night?
Yes, we did.
That was a brutal one too. I guess there's more than 2 brutal games last year, but let's actually take just a quick walkthrough of it, and then we'll get you guys' thoughts on a couple of the toughest games and a few other questions for you. But Philadelphia Monday night, that's going to be, Thursday night, that's going to be a tough one. Prime time in Philly, never a good experience. Got the Chargers then at home. Carolina, going back to Carolina. If you guys remember the walk-off by KJ a few years back, now they've got Adam Thielen on their team. Then we've got the Chiefs, which we knew was going to be tough, but that's going to be a late afternoon game, followed by the Bears in Chicago, which who knows what they're going to be this year. And then San Fran coming in again. So that Bears game almost feels like a trap game in between the Chiefs and Niners. Then you've got at the Packers, at Falcons, Saints, Broncos, and we got a bye. And then just scroll down here a little bit. We've got
late in the year bye. That's nice.
Bengals, yeah, late bye. Then we got Lions, Packers, Lions. So we got a Lions sandwich there at the end with the Packers in the middle. So a bunch of divisional games to wrap it up. Goose, I know you specifically, like you said, you didn't look at it a whole lot earlier. Give me your initial thoughts. Where's the sweet spot of this schedule? Because it looks, like Tanner said, it looks tough.
Yeah. If I had to pick one, I'm going week 8 through week 14. That's going to be where you have to put together a really good stretch of football. I think you can maybe afford to drop one of those games. Otherwise, I think you got to win them all.
Got quite a few primetime this year. We got 5 primetime games. Tanner, what are your thoughts on the primetime games? What jumps out to you there? I'm a little surprised there's a Monday night game against the Bears. It must be high on Justin Fields having a breakout year and turning that Bears squad around.
Do we have a primetime game against the Bears, or are you saying we didn't?
Oh, we do. Monday the
night.
27th.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm looking at something else here now. Primetime games are going to be tough, though, still. I mean, going to Philadelphia is to kick the season off just in week 2. I know we know what happened last year, and that's never an easy place to play. That's going to be probably, maybe actually arguably our toughest game on the schedule, going to Philly on Thursday night.
That was one of the games Tanner told me about today. And I said, if we win that game week 2 in Philadelphia with the roster they put together, I'm going to be screaming Super Bowl all season.
Would you rather
long.
play Philly, though, in September or December? Because I think I'd rather play them early in the year.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree.
That's going to be a tough. Well, let's just knock this one then out right away. Toughest road game. Is it Philly, or is there another one in there that you would be a little bit leery of, like that Cincinnati game in December? The date yet to be determined to be a Saturday, Sunday deal, but there's a few tough ones late in the season too. But Tanner, what's the toughest one on there on the road? Is it Philly?
Yeah, it's Philadelphia or Cincinnati. I would pick the Eagles game if you're going to make me choose one, but the Cincinnati game is not going to be easy either. Notoriously, looking back, the Vikings have never, ever played well in Cincinnati, and Joe Burrow is top 2, 3 QB in this league, maybe number 1 to some people, actually. So that's not going to be an easy test by any means either.
You guys remember 2 years ago when they started off in Cincinnati and they had wasn't the Delvin fumble, and was it an overtime game too? If I want to say it was, and nobody knew that the Bengals were going to turn out that well that year, but that was a kind of a stinker to start the season. So, Goose, you agree? Is it at Philly? Is that the toughest one?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of respect for Cincinnati, but to me, it's absolutely Philadelphia. I just think they were so dominant last year, and it feels like they only got better. So I think that's for sure going to be the toughest game on the schedule.
I'm going to ask you then this one, and I agree, Philadelphia. I think that's the toughest one. So get it out of the way early, and like you said, you win that game. Totally feels different going into week 3. Toughest home game. I know there's 2 that are going to jump out: the Chiefs and the Niners. If you had to pick one, and you can't say that they're both going to be difficult, which one of those 2 is going to be the absolute toughest home game? Kansas City's a late afternoon start. San Francisco is a primetime game. So
I'll let you go first, Goose.
I feel like this maybe just changed for me, glancing at it. I think San Francisco's brand of football is what we've struggled with more, and I think that game will slightly take the edge there. Obviously, it's also Monday night. It's going to be really tough for Kirk to kick that stigma looking at the schedule and which games are prime time. And I think that's kind of been part of his career narrative. When
maybe we trade Kirk to San Francisco before that. Kwesi's playing chess, knowing that Kirk doesn't perform well on Monday nights.
Yeah.
What do you think, Tanner? Which one of those 2 is a tough, or maybe another one? Maybe you think it's going to be the Bears. I don't know. Like, what's the toughest?
I actually do think it's neither of those teams.
Really?
Wow.
I actually think the Chargers is going to be the toughest home game, and I think it's due to matchup issues. I don't love Kansas City's defense, and they did lose a few players. So I think that's a team that we can get into a scoring match with. I do think Mahomes is obviously going to pose a bunch of problems for a pretty young secondary. But their offensive line isn't as good as it was last year. Orlando Brown's gone now. And I actually think they downgraded at right tackle as well with Jawan Taylor coming in. So there is a chance, I think, that we could dial up some pressure and get after Mahomes and make that a ball game. The reason I think the Chargers are an issue is because they have a very good offensive line. Right, Rashawn Slater is back this year. And their ball game is they just play like a really quick passing game offense with Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. They got Quentin Johnston now, Austin Eckler, good tight end, Gerald Everett. There's a lot of problems posed by that offense, and I think that's going to be an issue for a real young secondary for us. And I think their defense is extremely stout as well. I think they're going to be another maybe underrated contender in the AFC this year. I think they could give the Chiefs the run for their money.
I agree. That's gonna be a tough game. And looking at that schedule, those bold ones stick out. Those first 4 home games, 3 of those are gonna be brutally tough. I think San Francisco, it really depends on what they've got at quarterback. If Purdy's back by then, that one scares me too, Goose, because they are just a physical team. And last year, I think that was probably the knock on the Viking squad, was just not physical enough and just couldn't, just couldn't compete in some of those games. So I think that the Kansas City game is going to be a track meet, like you said, Tanner. Probably a really high scoring game. Probably be a fun one to watch. I don't know if we'll win it or not, but that San Francisco one probably scares me the most of those home games. So,
Tanner, you did a good job convincing me there on the Chargers. I found myself kind of making the mistake that I made with the Eagles last year, where they were a really talented roster, but maybe underperformed like the Chargers did last year. And so I look at them and I'm just kind of like, well, yeah, they were uber talented last year and didn't really do much. But if Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are healthy and Herbert is healthy, which it's likely since it's near the beginning of the year, Derwin James, some of those guys, that could be
Mack, Joey Bosa.
That could be a tough game.
Yeah.
I'm going to feel a lot better than years past now that we have Darisaw and O'Neal kind of supplanted at those protection spots there, but it'll be a fun battle to watch.
Give me, guys, the eyeball on this schedule. Obviously, it's early. The good thing is that every year we think it's going to play out exactly or very similar to the year before, and then everything gets turned on its head. And it happens every year, but we always think we've got a pretty good idea of how it's going to play out. So, given what we know, give me the toughest 3-game stretch, just eyeballing this right now. A stretch there where you're like, man, if they go 1-2, I'm actually probably okay with that because it's tough. I think I've got it pegged, but I'm really I'm going to start with Tanner on this one again.
Just the toughest 3-game stretch?
Yeah, where does that fall? Toughest 3 games.
I'm eyeing 2 separate areas right now, and I can't decide which one I want to pick, but I think I'm going to go with. Oh, man, I don't know.
It's hard, isn't it?
Well, the 2 I'm deciding between are at Packers, at Falcons, or I'm sorry, Niners, at Packers, at Falcons, and then at Raiders, at Bengals, hosting the Lions.
Wow.
Those are the 2 great
timeout
that I don't feel good
Are
about.
you overlooking weeks 1 through 3?
No,
the Eagles and the Chargers?
The Bucs don't scare me.
Who you just sold me on.
I actually, Goose, I'm just slightly off there. I say Eagles, Chargers, and then Carolina, even though I don't think they have a pretty good roster without a quarterback. Now they've got, I don't think Dielen's going to add much to it, but if Bryce Young can play at all, they could be a tough one too. And that's a road game on grass, outside.
I was between 1 and 3 and 2 and 4.
I think it's because, for me personally, like the Bucs don't really scare me and the Panthers don't really scare me. I do think the Panthers could potentially be a pretty underrated team this year. I just think they're still too young yet to.
But the Falcons
make any noise. Yeah, the Falcons are extremely they actually, in my opinion, probably have the best offensive line in football right now. So if Desmond Ridder plays well this year, they're going to make noise. They brought in a lot of additions on defense this year with Calais Campbell coming in. They added some veteran depth at corner. Linebacker play is solid. I just think they have Cordell Patterson, Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson now.
Oh yeah,
Drake London played well last year. Kyle Pitts, they have a lot of weapons and a really good offensive line, and I just think that they could really make some noise this year, and I could easily see them winning 10 to 11 games. So,
wow, Tanner, this
I
is
think
the
it's
biggest
because
bomb you're dropping.
My 2 spots, I feel like all 3 of those teams are all very competitive, and I think the Raiders are going to be good this year too. So,
wow. I'm feeling
area.
less optimistic the more I listen to Tanner talk. So, are we going to win a game here, or what's going to happen?
Yeah. Are we going to go through the schedule, or?
Yeah, let's do it. This would be a way too early prediction. You're more than welcome to have an official one come training camp or the end of training camp. But I think we got to do a quick first run through and see where the 3 of us end up. So, Let's just go game by game, and we'll not try to make it here too long. So we'll start. I'll just go week 1 Tampa. I'm going to say we win that.
Have to win it.
Yeah, you cannot afford to come out and fall flat against that team. Like if you lose to the Bucks and then you got to go to Philly and host the Chargers the next 3 weeks, like if you start the season 0-3, you're not going to be in a good position. Like that Bucks game almost feels like a must win.
Not
right
only
away.
0-3, but you could be looking at 0-5, 1-6 pretty easily. That
My emotions through the first 2 weeks of the season, if we lose to the Bucks, it's over. We're
Oh, yeah.
tanking. We're tanking for quarterback. And if we beat the Eagles week 2, I'm getting a Vikings Super Bowl ring tattoo.
don't you feel like that's maybe I'm the only one, but every year it's like every one of those early games, it's like
Yeah.
way up or down, and then by the end, it's just like you've dealt with it, and it's I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but overreaction.
No, I hear
big
it.
time. All right, week 2 at Philly. I'm gonna say we lose that.
I've never felt more like a game doesn't feel winnable than this one right here. And so I'm going to also say it's a loss.
I
And
too
then when
think that
you
is going
start
be
to
an
get
L.
optimistic, you'll just rewatch last year's, and then what were you saying, Tanner?
I too think that it's probably going to be a loss.
Okay,
I
so
don't
we're
think
all at
I
1 and
just
1.
don't think we match up well. I think the Eagles are extremely talented, just top to bottom, like arguably one of the most talented rosters in football, and they're just really solid in their trenches, offensive line and defensive line, and I just don't see us
And then on
competing
paper,
right now.
they just keep getting stronger too by the looks of it. So, well, Tanner, your AFC champion Los Angeles Chargers come to town week 3. I had that as a win, and I'm going to stick with it. And I'll preface it with I think they'll either beat the Chargers or beat the Chiefs at home, one of those two. So, what do you got, Goose?
I'm also going to go with a win. I think it's going to be a really tough game. I think it's going to be a shootout, but I think they pull it off. And this is like the first true sign of like, this is why you went and got Jordan Addison, is to have a legitimate second threat.
Tanner Weber?
This is a loss for me. I
Okay.
think this is our toughest home game this year, and I think it's going to be a loss.
All right, then we're going to Carolina off a loss. Tanner, what do you have them doing there?
They're going to go to Carolina and take care of business, and Adam Thielen's going to wish that he was back here.
Goose, you see it the same way?
Yeah, another game that I don't think you can overlook, but I think with this schedule, I think you got to win it. Going Vikings win.
I'm going to say a win as well. Early indications are that Mrs. Vandergreen also would like to go to that game. So we'll see if that plays out for me or not. Then we got Kansas City coming off a big win, coming back. You got to be careful in Carolina because you're going to be looking at that Chiefs game.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all saying they're going to deliver. So they're coming off a win, hosting the Chiefs. Goose, what do you got there?
Did you pick that as a loss, Brent?
The Chiefs?
Yeah.
I haven't said it yet.
Okay.
But I'm going to say that's a loss, yes.
I thought so when you said one of the Chargers or the Chiefs. I feel like Homer Goose is back, but for the reasons Tanner picked the Chargers over the Chiefs, I think that game is probably a lot more winnable than people think, and I think we pull that one off in another shootout.
Wow. Okay. Tanner?
I think the Vikings are going to give Mahomes and his squad a good run for their money, and I do think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. Close game, but I'm going to say that this is also going to be a loss. So the Vikings will fall to 0-2 against the AFC West.
Okay. So you got them at 2-3. Goose at 4-1. I'm at 3-2. At Chicago, we never play well there. It's a noon game. That helps. I'm going to say that we win that game in Chicago.
This is my coming down off of a high in Soldier Field, and Justin Fields running all over the place. We lose a close one.
Okay. Tanner?
I still think the Bears are in rebuild mode. I do think they're going to be better than they were last year, but I think the Vikings will take care of business.
Okay, so you got them up to 3-3.
I feel much better about containing mobile quarterbacks this year with Donatel gone.
All right, then we got Monday Night Football. We got Troy. Oh, let's see here.
I want to know who's most likely to be their quarterback at this point of the season.
I know, that's what I'm trying to think. I'm going to say that's a loss, mostly because it's prime time. I know that's dumb. I feel like if they played them at noon on Sunday, we have a chance. I don't think we do. Loss.
Is there do you have an opinion on like if one of their quarterbacks was playing, we have a chance of winning, and if one of their quarterbacks no.
I think you've got somebody that has two good arms. They're going to be able to move the ball and score at will. So, Tanner, what do you think?
This is a W for me.
Yeah.
I think if this game was in San Francisco, I'd probably pick the Niners, but I like the fact that this is a primetime game. We got the crowd noise on our side. San Francisco does have, either way, they're going to have a fairly inexperienced QB, most likely. So I think our
Goose,
defense
what do
is
you
going to
got?
be better this year, and they'll do a good job of limiting the Niners to points. So as long as we can score points, I like our odds. So I'm going to take a W on this one.
I have convinced myself that with it being at home, not knowing who their quarterback is going to be, the fact that they don't seem bought in on Trey Lance at all, and that I think that maybe the hype on Brock Purdy is a little too high, that we pull one out here.
Okay. All right. Then we've got at Green Bay. We remember how that went last year. Well, was it this year? New Year's Day. Green Bay last season. That did not go well at all. Tanner, more of the same, or is it a new look Vikings and a new look Packers?
Yeah, this game makes me nervous because I don't like the fact that Vikings fans just automatically assume the Packers are not going to be good anymore because Aaron Rodgers isn't under center anymore. We don't know what Jordan Love's going to look like, but they still have a pretty talented roster regardless of who is at QB. So I think they're going to be competitive. I don't think that they're going to win the NFC North, and I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to be a team that's like only wins like 4 or 5 games this year. Like I think they'll give teams a run for their money, but I think the Vikings will get some revenge in Lambeau this year, and we'll walk away with a W in this one.
Okay.
I also think people are overlooking the Packers, but I just think their lack of weapons right now, with a first-time starting quarterback, is going to be a bit of a problem. When you lose a guy, not that he's great, but you lose Lazard, and you're expecting Romeo and Watkins to step up, and you like, are they just going to run 3 tight ends and 2 running backs and just turn into like the 49ers and try to run it down your throat? And maybe that's their plan, because they've invested heavily on defense and then some of those big guys. But I think we win that game as well, and maybe it's a little closer than some Vikings fans think.
I think we win it as well. Hard to tell what the Packers are going to be this year. Wouldn't surprise me if they're good. It wouldn't surprise me if Love can't play. Time will tell, but I have that one as a victory. Then we go back-to-back road games down to Atlanta on November 5th. It's a noon game. We all think they're coming off a win. So, Goose, we'll start with you on this one. What's going to happen in Atlanta?
Vikings win. I think the Falcons just have too many variables. They're very young. And I think they're similar to how Tanner explained the Bears. Like, there's just a lot of really young pieces, a lot of really talented players, but so much has to happen for that to come together and turn into a winning football team. So Vikings win in Atlanta.
I think the Vikings win in Atlanta. Hopefully that one is not even a close game. So that's what I'll go with. Tanner, I know you might think differently of the Falcons squad this year. What do you got?
I I do think that they'll win this game, but I don't feel good about making that selection as a W. I think they're going to win because I'm expecting
back
our
up,
offense.
back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. I think they'll win this game, but I don't feel confident selecting it as a W. How does that happen?
I think
Is it a
they'll win
tie?
this
Are you
game, but I
predicting a
don't feel
tie?
good about saying it's going to be a win.
I know. So is it a win or a loss?
A win.
You're going to say a win? Okay. So you got them at 6-3. I got them at 6-3. Goose has them at 7-2. Playing the Saints at home, noon game, November 12th. Tanner, what do you got there?
Now, this to me is actually like one of our easiest games on the schedule at home against a Saints squad that is in rebuild mode right now. So I'm going to say this is also a win.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this should be one of the bigger wins of the season. I don't know if the Saints even know what they're doing. It doesn't seem like they've done a whole lot. I guess I kind of forgot about Derek Carr for a second, but that's still like, is Michael Thomas still in the NFL, and is he going to play?
Who's on their offensive line right now besides Ramchick?
Yeah,
like they have so many unknowns.
Yeah, that's a win.
Defense is old.
Okay.
Mario Davis is like 35, and Cam Jordan's like 35, and yeah.
I also have it as a win. So let's see. We got 7-3, 8-2, 7-3. And we're going to Denver at a Sunday night game in November. Should be decent weather yet, right? In Denver in November, I would think. Goose, what do you got there?
Gosh, I do think this is a winnable game.
This is a Sean Payton squad now. Just keep that.
I was gonna say I've got one, maybe too good of a record right now. Two, Sean Payton. I think Russell Wilson's gonna have a rebound season. If I remember right, I think they drafted pretty well, and some of their defense is still really solid. So I think the Vikings lose a close one, which stinks because it's another primetime game, and that's going to fall on Kirk.
I feel like the Broncos are going to be back for the reasons Tanner mentioned. I believe the stat, they had a similar number of one-score games last year like we did, but they lost them all and we won them all for the most part. So I think they weren't getting blown out every week. New coaching, Russell's there another year. He's not a bad quarterback. I actually think we lose, and I think this is that frustrating game of the year where we're like, are we even any good? Are we going to make the playoffs? What's going on? I could see that being just another Sunday night disaster. So that's what I'm going to go with, as much as I don't want to say it. I call that one a loss. Tanner?
Yeah, I would hate to play in the AFC West. I think that entire division is just going to be incredibly scrappy and competitive this year. And I think the Broncos are really going to be on a rebound, and I think Russell Wilson's going to have a huge turnaround season as well. And I think the Vikings are going to struggle to, for some reason, it just feels like, yeah, this is going to be like one of those games where they lay an egg. I agree. So
3 losses.
I'm going to say that this is a loss.
We all got it as a loss. Then we come back.
When was the last time we won a game in Denver? Have we ever won a game in Denver?
I don't remember.
Let me go to the internet.
Okay, we got to wait then an extra day. 8 days later, they play the Bears Monday night at home, right before the bye. Feel like to get things right again before the bye, come out strong against Chicago, and maybe look the exact opposite as they did 8 days earlier in Denver. So I'm going to call that a win. Tanner, what do you got?
I got a win on this one as well.
Enough said.
The Bears are 1 year away yet from being competitive.
Tanner and I both have them 8-4 going into the bye. Goose, what do you have happening there at Chicago with Chicago at home?
Can't get swept by the Bears in my prediction. So they're coming out with a win at home against Chicago.
So Goose, you've got them at 9-3 going into the bye. Tanner and I are at 8-4. I feel like with this schedule, we would all be very, very happy. If
Absolutely.
it was that, or maybe even like a 7-5 at that point, because the second half of the season, well, I shouldn't even say half. That last little over a quarter, there's some winnable games there too. So we got the bye. Then we're going to Las Vegas, which I think is one a lot of Vikings fans are circling. First time in Vegas, just how that'll all play out. We'll start with you, Goose. We'll start with you on that one. At the Raiders after the bye, 3:05 game, obviously, because it's out west. What do you got there?
Vikings win. I've historically been pretty low on Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's an okay game manager, but I think he's always been pretty overrated. And Jimmy G works a whole lot better on a team like the Niners than he does on the Raiders. And so I think that one should be a fairly easier game, at least looking at the scope of our schedule.
Tanner, what do you got?
I have this as a loss coming off the bye. I think the team's going to be flat, like they always seem to be coming off the bye.
How come there's so many teams that are good out of the bye, and it always feels like we're
flat. Like we're still on vacation, right?
Still on vacation.
I'm going to say Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't even last the season for the Raiders. I think they're going to be looking at moving up to get their quarterback of the future. I think it's going to not go well for them. So I'm going to say, even though we don't play well, I think we win. And we get the win. So we move to 9-4, in my opinion.
I just realized that I picked the Vikings to go 0-4 against the entire AFC West.
Well, good thing we're in the NFC North.
That's probably not
Tanner, our last win in Denver was 1999. There hasn't been a ton of opportunities, but it has been quite some time.
It's only been every 8 years, right?
Yeah.
All right. At Cincinnati, assuming they're going to be tough again this year. It's December. It might be like the first cold weather game for us.
Only cold weather game.
Only cold weather game. So I'm going to start on this one. I think this is a loss. I think we play them well. It's high scoring. Probably lose at the end again. So I'm going to call that a loss.
Yeah, this is a loss. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, and Irv Smith Jr.
Redemption
against
game
the young secondary, and they got a good defense, well-coached team. Vikings don't play well in Cincinnati historically. I don't like anything about this game, so this feels like one of two very obvious losses on the schedule for me.
Goose?
If Irv gets the targets, because if he's healthy and if he can catch the ball, I will be surprised. But I do think that this is a loss in Cincinnati.
Okay. Then we get a couple of home games. We get Detroit on Christmas Eve at noon. I'm going to say we split with the Lions this year. My gut tells me we win at home, we lose on the road. So I'm going to say we win that game.
Can we acknowledge that we don't play the Detroit Lions until Christmas Eve?
Yes, we can acknowledge that.
That is
on the screen.
That's wild to me.
I agree with Brent. I think the Vikings will split with the Lions this year.
Well, we're all on the same page, boys. I think we take the home game and we lose the away game.
All right. So, Goose, you got us at 11-4. You're Mr. Optimism here of the group. So, Green Bay, New Year's Eve, Sunday night game. That'll be a fun one. New Year's Eve. What do you got there then, Goose?
It's a home game against Green Bay.
Have you guys ever seen that gif of Tom and Jerry, where Tom is spanking Jerry?
Yes, I have. That's what's going to happen. Huh?
Packers Sunday Night Football.
Yes, after the December 31st game, the Packers are going off on Brian Gutekunst for running Aaron Rodgers out of Green Bay, and Jordan Love is not the answer because we laid a beat down.
Well, if Green Bay is bad, they could be playing for nothing by that point. Or they could be leading the division. Who knows at this point? But I'm going to call that a win. I think we're all in agreement there. And then the last one, I think Tanner and I both think they could lose.
I was in
hopefully
there
that's
too.
not for the division at that point. But Goose, what do you got?
I also have a loss. Brent, you just made me think. Let's just pray that Green Bay is not so bad that they're in the Caleb sweepstakes. I haven't thought about that until right now, and I can't handle that happening.
You guys, Tanner and I have them at 11-6. Goose, you have them at 12-5. So are we just way too optimistic?
Listen, we all predicted a worse season.
I had 10-7, Brent.
Oh, did you have 10-7? Okay.
Yeah.
My bad.
So we're all predicting a regression, which I think for the most part is all just from it's a tough schedule. But I think I feel like we've gotten better as a football team. I think there's going to be a lot that happens for the Vikings between now and opening week with the question marks around Delvin and Daniil and Za'Darius. But between the Flores signing and the addition by subtraction with Donatel, the addition of a very young and explosive, exciting Jordan Addison, Hawkinson having an off season with the group, Kirk having a second consecutive season, the same O-line returning. Like, I think the Vikings team should be significantly improved. And so I think it's realistic. That's my thought process, my supporting arguments for my predictions with this schedule.
So Tanner 10-7, me 11-6, Goose 12-5, averages out 11-6. I feel like as tough as the schedule is, somewhere in that vicinity, that's actually a pretty good result going through that gauntlet of a schedule. And the more Tanner talks about it, the harder I think it seems on paper anyway. So what do you guys think? Is this a 3-seed type of a team, a wild card? I don't know. Is Detroit taking the division? Like, what do you see playing out, Tanner?
Yeah,
way too early, of course.
I got to look at Detroit's schedule and Green Bay's too, because I still think Green Bay is going to be competitive, but it feels like they're going to be similar to last year, like a 3-4 seed if they can lock the division down. But if not, probably like a 6 or 7 wild card team. Probably not 7, because that's usually like the absolute like dumpster fires of the NFC. But I mean, going back to Goose's point, I think this team actually is going to be better than last year's team, but last year's team exceeded expectations. There's no way in heck anybody ever pegged they were going to win 13 games last year. So if they win less than 13 games this year and they're a better squad, I don't think that that's unreasonable by any means. So I think barring any injuries, this should be a team that's fairly competitive, and I think can make some noise in the playoffs if they put it all together.
Yeah, I think my final
NFL
record
to have us have the draft a few weeks ago, and then have us talking about football in the middle of May, because we know the order they're playing the games now. We've already known the opponents, but now we know the order, so it's a big deal. But it is fun to look at. I think we can agree. We all agree it's going to be a tough schedule, a tough year. Hopefully, a little bit better team, and hopefully that defense doesn't have us pulling our hair out like they did last year, especially in that playoff game against the Giants. Had that nice, nasty taste in our mouth for a while. But new season's coming. Goose, any closing thoughts?
Gosh, now what do we look forward to? I guess just following
Dalvin and Za'Darius.
Yeah,
Delvin,
and
Za'Darius,
Daniil.
and Daniil.
And if Brian O'Neill can walk. So it's going to be riveting.
All right, guys, there you have it. Have a great one, everybody. We'll be back again before you know it. If you've not yet hit subscribe, do that. Leave some comments, and we'll see you on the next one.